when I noticed things could be done better, or, just really anything. If I thought it had any kind of a negative connotation, I just wouldn't have those conversations. And I would tend to hold everything in. I would do the extra work myself instead of teaching them or explaining how something could be done better. And really, Windsor was the one who helped relate it back to me to being a teacher. She was like, you had no problems, telling a group of kids, how they could improve, what they could do, how you could teach. And that was the first time that I started to change my mindset. So I'd say really, it's been the past, I would say 7 to 8 years that I started to change my mindset, but really in the last year, I had a complete overhaul. And I realized not only how kind it was to be more clear in my conversations, I also started to see how devastating it was to our team that I wasn't having these candid conversations. And I don't think until that moment that I understood how detrimental it was, how much hurt it was causing.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we look at candid conversations. You may be thinking that you avoid conflict, that things will just get better. You don't want to jump in and micromanage. Well, candid conversations, when you know how to leverage them and you know how to create a culture around them, can change everything. Today's special guests are the sisters of Paper Daisy, and they are Lisa and Windsor. Lisa and I have a little bit of dialogue around some of the struggles that she had as an early entrepreneur in having these difficult, tough conversations. And she wasn't comfortable with them at all. She avoided them, and it caused a lot of stress and sleepless nights, if you will. But when she was able to understand how important they were and how critical it was to leadership, her sister helped her do that, Windsor, who's also on the show today. We have this dialogue around what was going on before the breakthrough and then what happened after the breakthrough. When you understand that candid conversations are a part of leadership and you embrace them and you learn to get better at them, you won't avoid them, and you will have the kind of conversations that you've always hoped to have with people that get a behavior change and have a lasting impact. And that's the key. And hopefully we'll unlock that for you today here. If my job is to help you grow your business and really grow as a leader and help your team step up and be empowered to be leaders across the organization. Now, if we can help you in any way, make sure you let me know. One of the things that we are offering is a free look at your leadership effectiveness evaluation. This is a custom experience I've created with my clients, and I'm bringing it forward to offer it free to you. If you're listening to this podcast for right now, all you have to do is go to genehammett.com and schedule your call, and you can mention that you heard me on this podcast, and it's absolutely free, no cost for this. And what you will get is a clear understanding of using the 7 dials of leadership, where you are right now and where you need to focus. I'll even help you come up with a plan and move forward. You can either choose to work with me or you can choose to do it on your own, and you can check in periodically and keep me updated on that. Love to help you. If you're listening to this, just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call for the leadership effectiveness evaluation. Now, here's the interview with Lisa and Windsor. Hello, how are you guys?
Doing great.
Good.
How are you?
How are you?
I am fantastic. We're going to have a great episode. We're going to talk about candid conversations and kind of the role that has played in the success of your company, but also kind of where you guys struggled before. Before we dive into this conversation, I'd love for you guys to tell us about your company, Paper Daisies.
All right.
Awesome. Windsor, why don't you take it?
Sure. So Paper Daisies Stationery started 18 years ago out of Lisa's house. It has evolved quite a bit from there, but we basically offer anything that can be printed to help brand a large event. We focus mostly on weddings. We also do some charity galas, mitzvahs, corporate events, that sort of thing. But yeah, pretty much anything that can be printed.
Well, I am curious, before we start off, how many employees do you have?
Well, there's 12 including us, so 10 people plus a couple of contractors.
So fairly small team, but communication is still a central part of what you guys are doing. I would imagine accuracy is something that's important for you guys, and the ability to collaborate on these different projects. You probably have a massive amount of different type of projects going on at one point in time.
Yes.
You had shared with me at an event, we met each other in person, about some of the struggles you guys had before you got to where you are today. And it really was centered around these radical conversations, or these candid conversations, if you will. What was the struggle like before?
Oh, it was a complete lack of leadership, I would say, on my part. Windsor's definitely better equipped at having candid conversations, and I really struggled. My background was an art teacher, and I'd never managed anybody. I'd never had to have difficult conversations with anybody other than teenage kids. So I really struggled in sitting across from somebody that I work with, and especially with reviews, trying to tell somebody that they need to do a better job when I felt like I had so many things I needed to work on and improve. And it really disabled me from having some clear conversations that would have been really kind. And so I would say it came from a lack of leadership on just, I would avoid them at all costs. And when Windsor came on board and became my partner, she really pushed me to step up and, start tackling some of those things that I really struggled with.
So Lisa, I'm just curious, just with you for a moment here, how long did this go on before you actually decided to step up?
So I had the business pretty much by myself for 10 years, the first 10 years, just worked out of my home. And when we moved into our first studio and started hiring people, I was paralyzed at, having a conversation with another peer, an employee, a team member, when I noticed things could be done better, or, just really anything. If I thought it had any kind of a negative connotation, I just wouldn't have those conversations. And I would tend to hold everything in. I would do the extra work myself instead of, teaching them or explaining how something could be done better. And really, Windsor was the one who helped relate it back to me to being a teacher. She was like, you had no problems telling a group of kids, how they could improve, what they could do, how you could teach. And that was the first time that I started to change my mindset. So I'd say really, it's been the past, I would say 7 to 8 years that I started to change my mindset. But really in the last year, I had a complete overhaul. And I realized not only how kind it was to be more clear in my conversations, I also started to see how devastating it was to our team that I wasn't having these candid conversations. And I don't think until that moment that I understood how detrimental it was, how much hurt it was causing.
Windsor, I want to ask you, because I'm curious, you were the one coming in and being able to witness this and being able to see kind of the ineffectiveness that was happening. Did you address it right away, or is this something you had to sit on for a little while and kind of get your head around?
Well, to answer that question, honestly, you should know we're sisters. I am her baby sister. And so I have always been very candidly open and honest with her about everything. And so I come into basically all situations from a very different perspective. I am honest. Some people have said brash, but I don't walk away from any kind of conflict, anything like that. So it was almost unnatural for me to not hit conversations head on. And we would talk about it, and I'd say, well, maybe we should be upfront. And each of the reviews or whatever it was that we were doing needed to have measurable points, things that we could point back to, specific examples, and we had those. but there was also always a little bit, but we need to be kind, we don't want to hurt their feelings, and we want to show them empathy, and we want to, so there was a little bit of dancing around it, which I don't think is wrong, but at the same time it does it can confuse. I think it can add unnecessary fluff when people quite honestly want to know the truth. They want to know what they can do better. They want to know what they can improve on. And it's interesting. Our business, being in the wedding industry, is very emotional.
So emotional.
We lead with empathy 100%. And I think empathy overused can be detrimental in the fact that it keeps you from being honest again.
Now, one of them just said, people want to know the truth. If you believe this perspective, you will have a lot easier time in having these candid conversations. Here's what it is. If you believe that people can't handle the truth, if you believe people aren't ready for it, if you believe that it's uncomfortable for them, so you're not going to say it, then you're going to have that resistance and you're not going to prepare yourself and you're not going to deliver the conversation the way you need to. But if you accept that people want to hear this, they want to grow, they want to know their blind spots, they want to know how they can perform at a higher level. And if you can help them, then you really are being a leader in a time when it's tough, but it's called upon. And I remind you of this because you want to make sure that you have to shift your mindset that people really do want to get better. Back to the interview. Well, I appreciate that. And I want to transition the conversation, not necessarily into just the pain and the struggles that you've had, because there was a breakthrough that you guys had. And I know that you guys pointed back to Kim Scott's book, Radical Candor. Maybe there was something that went with that beforehand. Where's the breakthrough like for you guys to reach the point where you are today?
It was a pretty big breakthrough. Like I said, Windsor, I think over the years started to kind of push down her natural tendencies. And I have a strong personality and kind of came out that way. And last year, as we were growing and scaling, we started to deal with a lot of people issues on our team that we had never really dealt with before in that way. And it was spending a lot of time, energy, just resources on how to come out of having, some major people issues. And one of the wonderful things is we just had a team member that was an incredible part of our team for years and years. And I would say different paths, like she was going in a different path in her life. And it turned out that my first inclination was, okay, let's just, she was leading the business and it was like, okay, great. I don't have to say any of the things that we're kind of building up naturally. And through reading that book, Radical Candor, I was able to very quickly recognize my shortcomings and my lack of leadership. And I was able to repair that relationship. And I initially was just like, oh, great, I don't have to have that difficult conversation. And I ended up sitting down with her for 3 hours. And it is by far one of the best conversations I've ever had in my life. And we were just super honest with each other. And I'm so grateful that in such a short amount of time, I was able to repair kind of the damage that I had done. And this was somebody that I love so much. So it was a really difficult situation, but it was having that really clear conversation and being really honest and still kind.
Well, and some of the things that we were doing kind of before we read the book, I don't actually remember where Lessons Learned came from, but we started Lessons Learned a long time ago. And it was an opportunity for people to call themselves out, not necessarily always being a mistake, but something that they learned and to share with the team. And that way we could all learn together and nobody felt bad or intimidated or like somebody was going to point fingers at them if they made a mistake. Like we all make mistakes. It's easy to make mistakes, but we want to make sure that we have processes around them. So Lessons Learned was a big part of it. And then the other thing that we started kind of out of necessity, bringing everybody together with our core values, was we do quarterly core values and coffee. And we take the opportunity to talk through our core values and we open the conversation to everyone. It's an open dialogue, but then we end it with, okay, this is your opportunity. If you have something that's on your chest that you need to get off your chest, if you have something that you want to say, a question that you want to bring up, now's the time to say it or let it go. And we found that after we read Radical Candor and started implementing some of the techniques in our conversations, and then also doing the clearings in our team meetings, that speaker forever hold your peace kind of thing moment in the core values and coffee actually became more impactful, and everyone felt a little bit more open to be able to say the things that were on their mind.
No, some of the audience may not be familiar with the EOS clearings. Can you give us your take on that and how you use it?
Yeah, we use it in all of our meetings. So we've got same page ownership kind of meeting. We've got a level 10 with our leaders, and then we call them level 5s, but technically a step down with each of the departments. And every meeting starts with a clearing. And the clearing is an opportunity to talk about something that is keeping you from being fully present, something that's been weighing on your mind, something that is distracting you, and that it's an opportunity to get it off of your chest. The same idea as what we were talking about before, just so that you can be fully present and all in.
Love all of this. Radical Candor has made a big impact on, I guess, the business as a whole. But Lisa, you're saying that it really transformed you. What would we see now across the culture and across, the kind of the way you guys have these candid conversations?
We started implementing one-on-ones and encouraging the team to take a walk outside with each other. And, it's really an incredible exercise to be walking next to somebody versus sitting across from them at a table, and just pumping your legs and talking. Different things come up, more personal things. You can discuss issues that you're having that are on your mind. And it's just a little bit more comfortable of an environment to have those. And so we've encouraged not just Windsor and I, as the owners of the business, but everybody else to have these one-on-ones. Encourages people to get to know each other better. So that's been one of the, I think, great things that we've implemented. I'm trying to think of anything.
No, I think it kind of just became a way of being, a way of talking to each other. Don't shy away from the conversation. Don't shy away just because. I think one of my favorite things that I got out of the book is not telling someone is basically assuming they can't handle it. And that's not really fair to not give them the opportunity to be able to improve or to know what is going on in their lives that, or what is going on in your life so that you can be more on the same page. And I think it just kind of became more of a culture change for us, just to be much more open and honest, and not always lead with empathy, but also lead with truth.
I would follow that up too by as being a leader, and being one of the things that I personally struggled with for so long. You can see how me changing my mindset and me having some uncomfortable conversations, it really, I think, helped relieve a lot of the people that worked here who aren't as necessarily, I don't want to say not as empathetic as me, but like as emotional or, people pleasing. And so I think it just created it on its own. It just kind of started to evolve and, gain more traction because they could see me doing it. And so, yeah.
I want to kind of highlight here the walk and talk. A lot of people don't really understand this because they're just so tied into the traditional way of doing it. And I get it. If we're virtual, if we're in different cities, this is not as easy. But if you happen to be in the same, location as someone, and every once in a while you get out of the office and go for a walk. It can be a sunny day, it can be an overcast day, but the idea is to leave the phones behind and for you guys to go walk side by side and have a different kind of conversation. One that isn't, let me look that up in the computer. Let me look that up in the spreadsheet. Let me look at the numbers. I'm not quite sure. It just gets real. Be prepared for these conversations. But, a walk and talk is something I used to do with my clients. When I had a lot of local clients in Atlanta, I would go out into the Beltline, if anyone knows where that is, and we would have an hour-long walk, and it was fantastic. I don't get to do that as much as I want to, and my team's 100% virtual, except for my wife. But I will recommend this to you. If you have people that are right there, break the rhythms of, sitting side by side or sitting across from each other in tables and in desks and chairs, and get out and go for a walk and talk, and make that a real moment that you can do and make it special. Back to the interview. You look back now at the person you were before this, Lisa, and do you even recognize yourself?
No, that's a great question. No, I really don't. I was the quintessential, I slept 2 to 3 hours a night for probably 5 to 8 years, raised 2 kids, was a good wife, and was the quintessential creative small business owner where I didn't know jack about running a business. And I tended to carry a lot on myself. And I think those difficult conversations, I was like, well, I'm fine. I can handle it. And I have learned so much just over the past few years about letting go of that and trusting other people on the team. And then, starting to have these more difficult conversations. And define that as a more difficult conversation. They're not that difficult anymore. Once you start, working that muscle, I used to, just being really honest, I used to cry for like 2 days leading up to reviews. I was a mess because, again, I was looking at myself like, how can I sit across from another adult human being and tell them they need to do better when I was like, I'm a mess. So this has definitely been a muscle that I've worked on and spent time, reading. And Windsor's such an incredible, we are such a good team in the sense that she has a lot of the strengths that I, am weaker in. And I don't know that I would say vice versa, but it's been a great team. Yeah, we make a really good team.
That's great. I can see the smiles on your face. I don't have anything specific here, but I'm just curious, the design of books are not meant to put everything in there. We have to leave some things out. Were there any gaps or any things that you felt like was missing when you were reading Radical Candor as you begin to apply this and actually do these conversations? There's different types of conversations. Is there anything that you can think of that's missing?
Yeah, I mean, I think just speaking from experience, I am a highly, highly emotional, very sensitive person. And I wish that there was a little bit more specific tools for leaders like that. I think it would have been really beneficial for me. I think probably not, most people aren't quite maybe as sensitive as I am. So maybe more tools for leaders like that.
Well, and one of the things that we did first, I hope it's okay if I mention another book, we read Outward Mindset as a team. And a lot of the techniques that it offers is recognizing defensiveness, which I think is also really important when you do start having difficult conversations, because it should be a dialogue, it should be a two-way street. And when things start coming back, it can put you in a place of defensiveness. And I think that's a really nice tool that I think we already had in our tool belt because of that other book.
Well, I really appreciate you guys opening up here. Not everyone tells their struggles, but also about the transformation and breakthroughs that they've had. I think that this will help other people hopefully not avoid these conversations. The pain is real, Lisa. I've experienced it. My very first difficult conversation when I was 23 and everyone else was talking badly about one of the team members' bad breath. And everyone was older than me, and no one had the courage to go up to the person and tell them. And I was like, you know what? I just thought to myself, I would hate to have bad breath and no one tell me.
Yeah.
And so I had the conversation and he's like, yeah, I'm aware. I'm seeing a doctor. I'm trying to get some help. But I just, like, everyone was talking behind his back, and it was just, that's a terrible place to be. And we don't want to have that kind of culture. Lisa, Windsor, thank you guys for being here on the podcast and sharing your wisdom.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Great interview. Candid conversations are something that we've all got to embrace. We've all got to be courageous enough, be curious, stay neutral across what you're doing, because it will help you do this. Those words came from Lisa and Windsor as we cut off the recording today about being curious and staying neutral is a critical aspect to their culture now. And it does help them engage in this open dialogue and candid conversations. Thanks to Kim Scott with Radical Candor, who was mentioned in here, and other books that were mentioned as resources. We do have a book coming out called How to Have Tough Conversations, so stay tuned for that in the near term. Now, when you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.